The era of cheap, reliable energy is dead, replaced by a desperate global scramble for security at any cost. While nations panic over oil supply, the biggest corporate players have already rigged the game with hedges that leave you exposed to the next price spike.
It should be not an impact. I think shorter-term basis, we are not able to ship our products, so I think it's more of a moot point. The way we think about it is that whenever the war ends, and we all wish it ends quicker, a lot of the sites have been impacted. We have a large install base in the Middle East, so our customers are in UAE, in Saudi, Qatar, Kuwait, everywhere. So the sites which have been impacted, they will have to be refurbished, they have to be brought up to speed. So clearly there will be a work associated with that. We are already working with our customer to estimate what that work will look like, and how do we, we have thousands of people already on ground for many years. So how do we be ready for that? So that's on the supply side. On the demand side, I clearly see the countries which buy oil and buy gas are already thinking, what is the next best alternative? What can they do differently? And I think they're going to look at options of more sources of energy which are in their control. Mm-hmm. So clearly, people are looking at alternative ways of generating, fuels of different type. Like biofuels becomes an interesting option all of a sudden. They were not adopted because they're expensive, but we always made a point that if you have a biofuel, they bring energy security. So it's a choice between cost and security.
Well, and cost is relative, right? When you see oil prices where they are.
That's right. So that comes into the play. On the demand side, customers already talking about, countries are talking about energy efficiency again, even at a higher pace. Can I consume less? Things like energy storage becomes very interesting because that can be used to bring more efficiency into the system. So I would say that it's going to play out with slight changes on how energy was being executed. Specifically for the people who are buying energy, they're going to be more conscious on mix change. They're going to be more conscious on reliability. Therefore, they're looking at more of their resources. They're going to be more conscious on efficiency.
Is there any change on the demand side from your oil and gas customers, specifically in that region?
Not really, I would say. I mean, customers have stayed heavily engaged. And I think if they had a certain plans to build certain capacity, other than the fact those plans will get postponed due to the situation, the fundamentals haven't really changed.
Have you had to pull any of your employees out of that region?
It's a very interesting question. We have, as I said, several thousand employees across GCC countries, and most of them are from the region. It means our employees are from either the locals of Saudi or UAE or Qatar, or the nearby countries. We have employees from Lebanon, Egypt, India, those countries. We haven't moved even a single person out. And most of our people have to stay safe, which is our high priority.
Sure.
So they work from home, or they're working from customer sites because we have multiple service contracts and we are bound to be at customer locations. And there we work in conjunction with the customer and coordinate with them to make sure that it's safe to work there. But fundamentally, we haven't dislocated anybody there because we believe that we can't forecast when the situation will be normalized, but we know when it then normalizes, we will be in huge demand. So we don't want time to restaff after that when we are required so urgently, and our employees are being kind of local from the region. They are accepting the fact this is the situation they need to deal with.
And are you seeing any effect on your costs? We were talking in the break, and most of your input costs is not that energy leverage. Correct. But are there other things that move through the strait that you are seeing an effect on your business?
Not as an input cost to us, because our manufacturing base is in the Middle East itself. Our manufacturing base is relatively lesser. I would say our manufacturing base is well distributed in US and in Europe and in Asia. So I think the input cost increase will be observed down the line when the higher cost energy becomes part of our cost structure. But for most part, companies like us take hedging against energy cost, anticipating such things occur. So net impacts on our P&L is practically not there, at least for 2026.
So let's turn away from what's going on in the Mideast. You guys have something much bigger for yourselves going on, which is the pending split of the company. And you'll be leading new Honeywell, which is the automation business, which is the biggest part of the business. Still on track for the third quarter?
Yeah, absolutely. On quarter three, we'll be splitting finally into three companies. One separation was done in last year in October, which is specialty chemicals business called Solstice Advanced Material. and the rest split will happen in Q3 this year, Honeywell and Honeywell Aerospace. And Honeywell is going to be a premier automation company. There's no large-scale automation players in the market, and we're going to benefit from our good understanding of the end markets we participate and transform automation to autonomy. The data science has progressed a lot over the last 12 to 18 months. And we have lots of data which can be used intelligently to reduce the skill gap which is occurring in our customer world, lack of people for operations, for maintenance. And they really are worried about how to address it. And to me, an automation company over the next several years turning into autonomous systems using agentic techniques is a great opportunity for our customers and therefore a revenue opportunity for us.
So say more about automation, if you would, because I think most people are familiar with the name Honeywell, right? But when you say to them, we're an automation company, they might not fully understand what that means. So especially now that it's going to be just an automation company, talk to me about what that means.
So we serve all mission critical segment, and automation is a very large segment, and we can think about automation of our home systems or different type, but we essentially focus on automation in 3 end markets: buildings of all type, hospitals, airports, data centers, the energy system, which is refinery, petrochemicals, but also life sciences and metals and mining, and then broader industrial infrastructure like semiconductor and utilities. What's common between all of them is they are mission critical. They can't fail. Therefore, the type of offerings you need and type of services you need is very different from something which you can afford not to work for a couple of hours. And that's a common thread between what we do. And our systems make our customers more productive, more efficient, and more safer. And that's what we mean by in automation, pure play automation company.
What do you see in those end markets as the biggest growth opportunity for you? I mean, data centers is something everybody's chasing. It's a it's a pretty small part of your business right now.
Right.
Is that the opportunity, or do you see it in other areas?
So for us our business model is build and mine install base. So we serve our customer by shipping our product or solution. That's nearly 60% of the business of New Honeywell. And 40% is mine the install base by providing our customer services and software to run those equipments better. That's how we really do it. So in building the install base, we have been focused on different markets which are growing rapidly. So in buildings, it's 3 markets: data centers, hospitals, and entertainment, which is hotels. In case of energy, it is LNG and gas processing, but also biofuels, even though the base is small, but they're growing quite rapidly. Life sciences. And then in industrial, we are focused on utilities and semiconductor. So we have wide, diverse end markets where we focus to grow our install base and not really linked to one particular vector, which makes us unique because we are through cycle company. So we are not waiting for one big growth vector to occur and that disappear, and then we are kind of explaining why can't we grow. We are more across the multiple sectors, focused company. And data center is doing well, but if it doesn't do well, it is not going to impact our performance.
Right, you're diversified enough.
We are diversified enough.
Vimal, you may have recently seen the announcement that Jeff Bezos, or the report that Jeff Bezos was potentially raising money to invest in manufacturing to use AI to leverage those businesses up. And it made me think about physical AI, right? We talk a lot about generative AI, but physical AI seems to be another area that people are excited about. What does physical AI mean for a company like Honeywell?
Yeah, when you think physical AI, immediately everybody's mind comes robots and humanoids, which is likely, right? That's more applied for discrete manufacturing. When we make widgets, we make things which can be made one at a time, like you can make cars one at a time, right? Or you can carry boxes one at a time. We are primarily in the industries I mentioned, which is automating buildings and energy sector and industrial. Their humanoids or their robots cannot show up because our systems are designed where we perform an automation process by sensing and acting, but human intervention is required in the end to make a final decision. Is it the right thing to do? Is it safe? It is productive? And also act on exceptions which require maintenance act. So in our world, the customer challenge is that people who are performing these tasks are slowly retiring, and they're not able to replace these people with 20, 30, 40 year experience. So they're looking for ways and means to do it, where agentic system is going to play a big role. So agentic systems is a physical AI in our world, where less people is not a proposition, it's less skilled people is a proposition. So if you have a 10-year experience with an agentic system, I can make you probably equivalent to a 25-year experienced people because I've captured the knowledge and know-how, and the database systems are constantly learning, and they're able to find the new defects or lack of performance in the system and alerting you. Now, there are some very minor type of processes which can make fully autonomous. But for most part, these are agent-based systems which are providing input to a human. And human is not watching for exception, it has to act on it. It has to make a decision. So I think we are very excited about options and a possibility it's going to provide to our customer base and really solve the fundamental issue of skill shortage, but at the same time increase the customer optionality of making more revenue and more margin.
So let me ask you this as well. Because there's so much concern about the future generations and what kind of skills are going to be necessary. So if you were advising somebody, a young person now, on what to study, what kinds of things would they study in order to fill a job like you're talking about?
I would say that, I always define the job into three kind of broad categories. You define a problem, then you execute the problem, and then you have to validate the execution has been done right. These are kind of broad three buckets. I think it's the middle layer which can be heavily automated, execution. But defining what has to be done and testing what has to be done right, it always requires human intellect, human knowledge. So think through the sectors you are serving or the jobs you're looking at, how much of work can be automated in the execution phase. Example in point is software. Most of the software execution is automated, the code writing.
Right.
So no surprise that a lot of those jobs are getting impacted because of that. But much of the work we do make physical product. So product manufacturing itself requires a human because our product requires testing, they need certification, and humans are not, robots or AI is not capable of doing that. So I think one has to really choose the sectors where are AI proof. I think there are lots of them, where human intellect is still required as a final decision making, and that's a segment Honeywell serve. So I don't want to say we are AI proof, AI will be deployed by us into our own processes to make us more efficient, but our products are kind of AI proof because they're all physical systems, they are deterministic, they are rule based, and you cannot, it's hard to replace.